They're certainly worried it's the UK variant due to the fact that this quarantine worker worked on a floor where there was at least one and possibly a couple of UK variant cases, but that won't be confirmed until later today. But I think, today or possibly tomorrow. I think that, though, explains the very robust response that's come from the WA government.
OK, so it's one case. We're in a 5-day lockdown in Western Australia. You say that's justified?
Well, I think you've got to remember that Western Australia hasn't had a case for a very long time, and the social distancing and COVID-safe behaviour is really a thing of the past in WA. So if this chap has been infectious while he's been out and about, there could already be a very large number of cases, and if this is the UK variant, it could get away from authorities really quickly. So although it seems quite bizarre to lock down millions of people on the basis of one case, I think we can understand it. And if they get this right, it'll be 5 days of pain and then hopefully back to relatively normal.
Yeah, hopefully it's a South Australian experience and they got back to normal very quickly indeed. This, once again, Doctor, puts a spotlight on hotel quarantine systems. You've been calling on this to perhaps be tightened a little. We know that this worker had 2 jobs. He was a rideshare driver as well. Should that be ended now in every state?
Yeah, we're certainly of the belief that the highest risk for Australia at the moment is workers in hotel quarantine. We've seen it again and again. Every state now has had breaches of quarantine through the workforce. So it makes complete sense to protect our community by limiting the number of other jobs that these workers can have and by financially supporting them adequately so that they can still make their livings. But that would be a strong step. It's a step that Mark McGowan didn't make when called upon to do it some months ago, and I think perhaps he should be reconsidering at the moment.
So we know the vaccine will be rolled out. That will be the focus of the Prime Minister's speech today. That will come, hopefully, at the end of February. With what's going on around the world, particularly Europe passing that resolution, really threatening to hoard some of these vaccines, do you think it's realistic that the timeline that Australia set out can be achieved?
I think it's going to be a huge challenge for Australia, and some of the moving parts are completely outside of our control. And you rightly point out that the European situation is a threat to the early phases of our vaccine rollout. But luckily, the government committed to local manufacture a long time ago, and CSL have been making that vaccine now for a while. Hopefully, it'll be available end of March. And that's really our protection, that we can at least have local production. 50 million doses will be enough for our whole population, and that should allow our program to be delivered on time and to the targets, but perhaps the start will be slower than we thought.
Yes, well, we hope we can get back to life as normal as soon as possible. But I want to try a question with you that no one really seems to be able to answer. When can life get back to normal? Do we have an idea of how many people would need to be vaccinated in Australia to allow borders not to be shut, to allow travel overseas without quarantine? Or is that crystal ball gazing?
Look, for now, Laura, it is crystal ball gazing because none of the vaccines have been shown to have any impact on herd immunity. So if the government still want to keep the virus out of the country, then they can't relax the borders, even if the population's vaccinated. However, there is an argument that once the vulnerable people are immune, once the bulk of the population are not going to get terribly sick, not going to end up in hospital or much less likely to, then perhaps you can allow the virus in. And that's a question I think is going to have to be thought of really carefully over the next couple of months.
Yeah,